The region today identified as the State of Israel, encompassing the historic territories of Canaan, Judea, and Palestine, exhibits a remarkably continuous record of human habitation and political contestation stretching across several millennia. Archaeological and textual evidence consistently demonstrates that the area served as a fertile corridor connecting major civilizations of the ancient Near East, thereby attracting repeated interventions by both neighboring and distant powers. Prior to the emergence of any distinctly Israelite political formation, Canaanite city-states constituted the predominant organized societies, characterized by independent urban centers such as Jericho, Megiddo, and Hazor, which flourished under intermittent Egyptian hegemony during the Bronze Age. The appearance of the Israelites represents a gradual process of ethnogenesis within the Canaanite cultural matrix rather than an abrupt external imposition. Emerging prominently in the highlands during the transition from the Late Bronze to Iron Age, these groups coalesced into tribal confederations before establishing monarchic structures. The united monarchy associated with figures such as David and Solomon, followed by the division into the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah, marks the first sustained exercise of local Jewish sovereignty in the land. This autonomy, however, proved fragile in the face of Mesopotamian expansionism, underscoring the vulnerability of small Levantine polities amid larger imperial dynamics. Control over the territory never remained static or exclusive to one population. Successive conquests by external forces reshaped demographics, languages, and religious landscapes, while elements of earlier inhabitants persisted through adaptation and intermixture. The interplay between indigenous continuity and periodic foreign domination defines the historical experience of the region, setting the context for understanding later claims to belonging grounded in antiquity, exile, and return. Pre-Israelite and early Israelite presence. The land preceding Israelite consolidation was inhabited by Canaanite-speaking Semitic peoples organized into autonomous city-states. These polities engaged in agriculture, trade, and limited warfare, developing early alphabetic scripts and monumental architecture while navigating Egyptian pharaonic overlordship during much of the Middle and Late Bronze Ages. No unified Canaanite kingdom ever emerged. Instead, rival urban centers competed for resources and influence under loose imperial suzerainty. Israelite society crystallized from within this Canaanite milieu, likely through processes of sedentarization, social differentiation, and cultural distinction in the Central Hill country. Biblical narratives describe an exodus from Egypt and conquest, yet material evidence points to more organic development, with Israelites sharing material culture, language roots, and religious motifs with surrounding groups. The establishment of a united monarchy around the turn of the first millennium BCE represents the initial consolidation of political authority under a centralized Jerusalem-based regime. Following the division into northern and southern kingdoms, the northern entity fell to Assyrian forces in 722 BCE, resulting in mass deportation and the assimilation of its population into Mesopotamian society. The southern kingdom of Judah endured longer as a vassal before succumbing to Babylonian conquest in 586 BCE, when Nebuchadnezzar II destroyed the First Temple and exiled significant segments of the elite to Babylonia. These events mark the first major disruption of Jewish political independence in the land. Mesopotamian conquests and the Babylonian exile. The Assyrian and Babylonian interventions constitute distinct episodes of Mesopotamian imperialism rather than interchangeable phenomena. Assyrian campaigns targeted the northern kingdom, dispersing its inhabitants and effectively ending its existence as a sovereign entity. Babylonian policy under the Neo-Babylonian dynasty focused on the south, employing siege warfare against Jerusalem and systematic deportation to weaken resistance and integrate skilled populations into the imperial core. The Babylonian exile severed direct Jewish governance over the territory while preserving communal identity in diaspora. Exiles maintained religious and cultural practices, producing literary works that reinforced historical memory and covenantal theology. The conquerors themselves, Akkadian-speaking polytheists devoted to deities such as Marduk, exercised administrative control over the depopulated province, appointing local governors and extracting tribute. No evidence suggests that Babylonians and Jews constituted the same people or shared a unified kingdom. The former acted as imperial overlords. The latter endured as a subjugated minority whose deportation aimed at neutralizing political and religious centers of resistance. This distinction underscores the separate trajectories of the two groups despite their Semitic linguistic affinities. Restoration under Persian and Hellenistic rule. Persian conquest of Babylonia in 539 BCE under Cyrus the Great inaugurated a new phase of limited Jewish autonomy. Imperial policy permitted return migrations and authorized reconstruction of the Jerusalem Temple, establishing the province of Yehud as a Persian satrapy. Returned exiles rebuilt communal institutions under Persian oversight, blending continuity of tradition with accommodation to Achaemenid administration. Hellenistic domination followed Alexander the Great's defeat of Persia in 332 BCE. Successor states, Ptolemaic Egypt and Seleucid Syria, introduced Greek language, urban planning, and cultural norms to the region. Seleucid attempts at enforced Hellenization provoked resistance, culminating in the Maccabean Revolt of 167 BCE. The ensuing Hasmonean dynasty achieved temporary independence, expanding territorial control and enforcing religious uniformity until internal strife invited Roman intervention. These periods illustrate cycles of external hegemony punctuated by assertions of local self-rule. Persian tolerance facilitated religious restoration. Hellenistic pressures elicited armed reclamation of sovereignty. Neither era eradicated prior populations entirely, as intermixture and persistence characterized demographic reality. Roman and Byzantine domination. Roman incorporation of the region began with Pompey's campaign in 63 BCE, reducing the Hasmonean state to client status. Herod the Great's reign as a Roman-appointed king blended Jewish observance with Hellenistic architectural patronage, yet underlying tensions persisted. The First Jewish-Roman War, 66–73 CE, ended with the destruction of the Second Temple, while the Bar Kokhba Revolt, 132–135 CE, triggered widespread depopulation, renaming of the province as Syria Palestina, and intensified diaspora. Byzantine rule from the 4th century onward transformed the territory into a Christian heartland. Imperial authorities promoted pilgrimage sites, constructed churches, and at times restricted Jewish residence and practice. The population included Jews, Samaritans, and growing Christian communities, with Greek as the administrative language. These centuries entrenched foreign Christian governance over a land once central to Jewish religious life. Roman-Byzantine control persisted until the Arab-Muslim conquests of the 7th century, marking the longest continuous period of non-Levantine sovereignty prior to the modern era. Arab-Islamic and medieval successions. The Rashidun Caliphate's conquest in 636–638 CE introduced Arab rule and initiated gradual Arabization and Islamization. Successive dynasties, Umayyad, Abbasid, Fatimid, administered the territory as part of Greater Syria or Egypt, fostering a predominantly Arabic-speaking Muslim majority alongside Christian and Jewish minorities. Jerusalem acquired heightened sanctity within Islamic tradition. European Crusader invasions beginning in 1099 established Latin Christian principalities, including the Kingdom of Jerusalem, which endured intermittently until 1291. These Frankish entities represented direct implantation of Western European political and ecclesiastical structures, displacing local Muslim and Christian populations in controlled zones. Mamluk Egypt subsequently reasserted Muslim authority, followed by Ottoman incorporation in 1517. Turkish administration maintained long-term stability, treating the area as administrative districts within the empire. Throughout these transitions, the core population identified primarily through religious affiliation and locality rather than a unified national label. Modern transitions and the emergence of Palestinian identity. Ottoman rule persisted until British forces captured the territory during the First World War. The Mandate for Palestine, formalized by the League of Nations in 1920, incorporated the Balfour Declaration's endorsement of a Jewish national home while safeguarding non-Jewish communities' rights. Zionist immigration accelerated, establishing agricultural settlements, urban centers, and self-governing institutions amid rising intercommunal friction. The Mandate period witnessed competing national aspirations. Jewish Zionism sought statehood as refuge from European persecution, while the Arab majority asserted indigenous claims. British withdrawal in 1948 coincided with the proclamation of the State of Israel and ensuing war, resulting in territorial reconfiguration and large-scale displacement of both Jewish communities from Arab states and Arab Palestinians. The Arab population of the region, historically referred to as Arabs of Palestine during the Mandate, coalesced into the modern Palestinian national identity. This group, comprising Muslims, Christians, and smaller minorities, traces linguistic and cultural roots to the post-7th century Arabization process while preserving genetic and archaeological continuity with ancient Levantine inhabitants. Conclusion: trajectories of sovereignty and identity in the southern Levant. The southern Levant's history demonstrates a profound absence of perpetual possession by any single ethnic or national group. Instead, the region accumulated successive layers of conquest, cultural adaptation, and demographic persistence across millennia. From the autonomous Canaanite city-states of the Bronze Age through the emergence of Israelite kingdoms, the territory experienced repeated subjugation by Mesopotamian powers such as the Assyrians and Babylonians. These early episodes were followed by Hellenistic Greek rule after Alexander's conquests, prolonged Roman and Byzantine administration, the transformative Arab-Islamic caliphates beginning in the 7th century, brief but intense Crusader occupations, and centuries of Ottoman governance. Throughout these shifts, local populations endured through intermixture, conversion, and gradual linguistic and religious realignment, ensuring that no era erased the preceding one entirely. European interventions stand out as the most consistent examples of domination originating far beyond the immediate Middle Eastern sphere. Hellenistic Greeks introduced administrative and cultural frameworks that reshaped urban life, while Roman and Byzantine authorities imposed centralized governance, infrastructure, and Christianity that profoundly altered the religious landscape. The Crusader kingdoms represented direct transplantation of Western European feudal and ecclesiastical systems, and the British Mandate of the 20th century brought modern colonial administration, legal institutions, and infrastructural development. Each of these external forces left enduring legacies: architectural monuments, linguistic influences, legal traditions, and demographic imprints that continue to shape the region's physical and cultural environment. The re-establishment of Jewish sovereignty in 1948 marked a decisive modern reclamation after nearly 2 millennia of diaspora and minority status. This process unfolded through sustained Zionist organization, waves of immigration driven by persecution in Europe and elsewhere, the construction of robust economic and political institutions, effective international diplomacy including the Balfour Declaration and United Nations Partition Resolution, and ultimately military defense during the 1948 war. The outcome produced a sovereign state rooted in historical claims to the land while navigating the complexities of competing national aspirations and immediate armed conflict. Contemporary Israeli and Palestinian identities both arise from this deeply shared yet fiercely contested historical record. Each narrative selectively emphasizes periods of autonomy, cultural continuity, exile, or indigenous presence to affirm legitimacy and belonging. A comprehensive understanding of the southern Levant's trajectory demands recognition of both persistent threads of habitation and the ruptures introduced by conquest and migration. No single account can claim exhaustive authority. Instead, the region's past invites ongoing scholarly examination that respects the multiplicity of experiences embedded in its layered history.